about Bawku, put Bawku in focus. We know the conflict is still raging on. Now the Asantehene Otumfuor said to the second. We're told is set to resume mediation efforts between the two factions involved in the ongoing Bawku conflict. We're told between April 28th, that's yesterday, to May 1st, these mediation sessions will be taking place in Kumasi to resolve the Bawku disturbances. I've got my colleague on the line, William Evans Inkum, is our Northern Chief Bureau. And he can give us some better particulars. Let's speak with him now. Williams, hello, good morning.
Good morning, Helen.
How are you doing?
We are doing very well. I'm sure you're also doing well as well.
Yes, we're not doing too badly over here, but obviously very concerned about what is happening in Bawku as the conflict rages on. Now, do tell us, as someone on the ground, what has been the general public's reaction to Otumfuor's involvement in the Bawku peace process?
Well, it is that of optimism that the Asantehene will be able to mediate this peace process successfully, and peace will restore as far as Bawku is concerned. And exactly what is starting today. I've seen some of the people coming. They are not coming in droves, but they're coming individually. So not too long ago, I saw some of the reps from the Mamprisi side. They are in Kusasi. I'm yet to see anybody arrive yet. But what we also do know is that this particular meeting is going to be held under strict security protocols. So some of the pictures that I've seen is going to be a face-to-face kind of engagement with Otumfuor seated in the middle. And that is how the mediation process is going to look like. Now, like I said, it's going to be held on a very strict security protocol. So nobody will be allowed to enter the auditorium with a mobile phone, not even the security men. So I'm talking about both police and military. They will not even be allowed to enter the auditorium with their mobile phone. Outside the auditorium, there's going to be strict or heavy security presence. We're talking about a combined police military force who are going to take care of security. There are certain areas that have been flagged, limited to, restricted to movement. And here I'm talking about road leading to the Menshia Museum. If you're coming from outside, or if you're just moving in the peripheries of Menshia and you want to enter the museum, that particular road is restricted for now until the mediation process ends. Then, of course, coming from the airport area through to the Menshia Palace, I'm talking about that principal street, there was also going to be some level of restrictions. Military police are going to take over these routes, and nobody will be allowed access, especially when you have nothing doing as far as this particular process is concerned. So these are some of the security arrangements that have been put in place. Of course, yesterday I was hearing that there's going to be a chopper around, also be patrolling from air.
Right.
I cannot independently confirm that to you, but it's something that we are also hearing. And it boils down to the fact that there's going to be heavy security detail here and a strict security protocols. Last night, His Excellency the President of the Republic, together with some high-profile government appointees, and of course some regional executives and then also national executives, also visited Asantehene. But that particular meeting was held in closed doors, so I'll not be able to tell you what transpired between them. But I wouldn't be surprised that anything certainly that they will discuss will, of course, have something to do with the Bawku crisis. Then, of course, I also saw the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, who was here yesterday. Well, I haven't seen her this morning, but I've been told that she's likely to be part of the the peace mediation process. So Helen, so far these are some of the stuff that I've been able to gather for you.
Fantastic. It sounds as though there's a lot of security detail given the sensitivities around this particular mediation process. Now, we were told, or reports indicated, that it was supposed to start yesterday, but you say today is the official starting day.
Well, absolutely. So yesterday was for the arrivals, and that one was also done under very strict security protocol. Look, as I speak to you now, nobody knows where they are lodging. That one hasn't been disclosed to anybody, and we also understand that the car that will be moving them from their respective places of lodge, the car, they will not disembark from the car at any of the car parks here, but it will move them straight to the auditorium. So physical contact is something that is going to be very difficult as far as our coverage here is concerned, but the cars that are likely to move on, that will be bringing the parties to the Menchie Auditorium, yes, of course, we are going to see them. So these are some of the things that they've also put in place.
Right. Now, we were told the process would go from the 28th of April through to May 1st. Are there any indications on whether or not this timeline could be extended?
Well, so that will be dependent on what's transpired at the auditorium starting today. We are just hopeful that cool heads will prevail, and then at the end of the day, they will come to a very fruitful conclusion. I'm talking about the fielding parties. One person was telling me that's the more reason why this particular meeting is being held under very strict security protocols. At the end of the day, whatever is discussed in there will not have its way into the public domain, at least from now till the time that they've been able to at least come to a fruitful and a peaceful conclusion.
Now, Williams, what unique challenges do you foresee this peace project facing in terms of community acceptance? You are in the thick of things, and also as far as sustainability is concerned. What are you picking?
Well, from what I'm deducing from the security arrangement that they've made, any breach of security probably could hamper the discussion, and exactly what they are trying to prevent, because, I mean, what they are trying to avoid is rumor, dangerous rumor, speculations, and then negative perceptions. These are something that they are trying to avoid, and that is why they are doing everything possible to protect information and even be very economical as to what particular information comes out. So here, there's nothing like this information is mundane. It has to get into the public domain. Whatever information that has to come out probably will be something that has been well processed, something that will not, injure the very peace deal that they are trying to achieve or attain as far as all these important meeting is concerned. So anything breach of that, perhaps from what I'm hearing, could hamper the process.
Cecily Williams, hold on for me. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Emmanuel Kutin. He's the Executive Director, African Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. Emmanuel, hello, good morning.
Helen, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for making some time for us as we delve into this important discussion. Bawku is, of course, high up on our radar, and we know that Otumfuor has waded into the conversation. But from your perspective, how does the Bawku conflict intersect with issues of national security and counter-terrorism?
Thank you. It's not in doubt, and it's public knowledge that if we are not able to contain the conflict in Bawku, Bawku could become our Waterloo to our fight against violent extremism, given that our neighbors are heavily affected by this canker. But I want to draw a bit about what is happening in Menchie today.
Sure.
And I'm so happy about your colleague, correspondent. He used a word I'm very happy about. There's that there's a level of optimism. We shouldn't see Otumfuor's intervention as the panacea to the conflict to bringing peace in Bawku. It's just one of many steps that, as a country, we have to take to bring lasting peace to Bawku. I have a few challenges. We seem to be securitizing the process with heavy security presence at Mancha. For Christ's sake, if you meet the leaders of the feuding faction, they'll tell you when they meet, they chat and laugh. It's not as if they are at war. And if you look at the traditional relationship between them, they have intermarried. It's just that chieftaincy has become a very thorny issue in Ghana today. Such that when it gets to that level, everybody wants to fall in line. So we need to demilitarize the process and then make sure that we don't make it look as if the Kusasis and the Mamprishis are not talking. If you meet their leaders, those of us who talk on the program,
right,
I can assure you that when I leave on air right now, you see leaders of both feuding factions calling, And another challenge I have is the presence of the UN representative in Ghana. I think it's premature at this point to be involving our international partners.
You don't think that's a proactive measure rather than being reactive? What signal does that send?
No, you see, processes like this is consultational in nature. They need to consult the feuding factions, and that is when they will be able to streamline where to begin from. It's not as if the Otumfuor has a magic wand to direct that Kusasis should do this or Mampreshis to do this. It is a dialogue kind of thing to listen to both sides. Then we can fashion out the processes of the things we feel can be acceptable to both sides. Then we can bring lasting peace. Look, I want to urge government that in as much as these processes are going on, they should equally take a proactive steps in meeting the elites of the feuding factions. Because anything short of that is not going to work. Because when these leaders leave Otumfuor's palace a day or two to come, they are not going to give any definitive word about their stand. I think they'll ask for time to go and consult. Whom are they going to consult? It's their elite, the educated ones they see must advise them on the processes ahead. So that is why I was thinking that government will make both processes go hand in hand. Then at least they understand where government position is. You understand?
Right.
We must not also lose sight of women leaders and the role they play in conflict prevention. Those aspects will have to be looked at. And the youth leaders as well. Because trust me, I'm a Northerner. If you look at how we, the youth, we interact, sometimes we tell ourselves that we cannot fight the fight of our parents. We have that of our own to unite our parents rather. So I think government should not sit back and feel that because Otumfuor have taken this initiative, it's a cast in stone that peace can emanate from this process. It's just one of many, just like I mentioned earlier.
Certainly. Let me bring in my colleague Williams back into the conversation. Now, Williams, when it comes to this particular mediation process, who is Otumfuor collaborating with to facilitate this process?
Well, so from what I've seen, that is, I've had the chance to see already. I've told you that there's strict security protocols here.
That's right.
So even the arrangement in the auditorium is something that has also been kept under wraps. We are not supposed to see them, but I was able to at least see what arrangement has been made in the auditorium. And what we are seeing is so on the days I saw 4 chairs, two facing each other. Then there were 2 other chairs in the middle, and that appears to me that Otumfuor was likely to be in that middle chair. As to who will be seated alongside Otumfuor is something that I wouldn't be able to tell because who Otumfuor is working with hasn't been made public. And then the 2 chairs that I saw facing each other, I presume that will be hosting the 2 fielding parties. So they're likely to be watching each other as they engage, and probably that will be the first time probably they are meeting.
Williams, thank you so much for that very comprehensive update. I know you've got a busy day ahead, and of course throughout today and up until this process ends, we'll be looking to you for some much needed updates.
All right, thank you.
Again, that was Williams Evans Inkum. He's our Northern Bureau Chief. Mr. Emmanuel Kutin is still with us. He's the Executive Director, African Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. We're talking about the mediation efforts that are currently underway, and this is under the auspices of Otumfuor. Mr. Kutin, back to you on this one. You talk about the efforts of Otumfuor not being the be-all and end-all for this situation. You say that he is complementing state-led efforts in this regard. You also talk about involving women, involving the elites. But for the wider citizenry, what should we be thinking about as this conflict rages on?
I think we have a duty to avoid misinformation. We have a duty as stakeholders to complement the efforts of Otumfuor, especially the media. The spirit of sensational reportage must be viewed carefully. If you're listening to your reporter, he has a sneaker pics of how chairs were arranged, and he's trying to impugn how the process may span out. I think at this point, those things are not necessary. And let me offer this caution. There's nothing really that will come out at these initial stages. To me, more or less, it's about information gathering. They want to fact-check certain things and see the position of all the feuding factions. Then they can come back to the drawing table and factor in all the peace-building models and look at which one that can be appropriately applied in the Bawku case. So I will call for total restraint, not only of the feuding factions, but all Ghanaians and the media in particular. And I also want to urge the government that we can solve our own problems. Let's own the process. We shouldn't make it look as if our international partners will come and resolve a localized issue like the Bawku conflict for us. Because if you look at the Dagbon case, at a point I saw our international partners rearing their ugly heads and trying to take credit for what happened in Dagbon. But I can say on authority that it was the government of the day's effort that brought peace in Dagbon. I don't think it's everything we have to run to our international partners for funding. I'm not sure Bawku is so big a case as a country we cannot handle it. So I'll call for total restraint and call all stakeholders, peace-loving Ghanaians, to all put their hands on deck, and let's see what comes out of the Otumfuor mediation, the initial stages of the consultation. At this point, there is nothing we can prefer until we have a communique from His Eminence Otumfuor after he had consulted with the feuding faction at the initial stage. I know there will be series of meetings And this is just one of many that we'll witness in the coming months.
Now, Mr. Kuti, let me ask you finally, do you believe there's enough political will across the board beyond the mediation efforts to see the Bawku peace process through to its finality? You say we don't need any external support, but on home soil, do we have what it takes to finally close the lid on this unfortunate incident?
It was the political will that brought peace in Dagbo. And this instant case, I see the political will. Government has maintained a very neutral stand at the displeasure of one of the feuding factions. You know, Mama Yege's house was touched. There was press releases he shouldn't come to Bawku. There were press releases about the promises the NDC made to the Kusasi youth. So to me, the goodwill is there. Is not in doubt, and I want to commend government so far for being neutral in all of this. I can assure both feuding factions that at the end of the day, they will embrace themselves in white smokes and ask themselves, why has this thing raged on for that long? So there's a saturating point for every conflict, and I think this is the time.
Mr. Kutin, very grateful for your time this morning and also for your perspective on this matter. Do have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thank you, Helen.
And again, that was Mr. Emmanuel Kutin, Executive Director, African Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. Let's also get onto the phone lines and speak with Professor David Abdulai. He's the Senior Governance Advisor, African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. Prof, hello, good morning to you.
Good morning, Helen.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great, yeah.
All right. Now, we know Otumfuor has waded into the Bawku conflicts and there are some mediation efforts underway. How significant is the involvement of respected traditional leaders like Otumfuor in resolving long-standing political and ethnic conflicts?
Well, I think it is a very good idea, because if you look at the fact that most of the traditional leaders like Otumfuor have the experience of first resolving conflicts and mediating disputes in their own kingdom, like the Ashanti Kingdom. And of course, I think like your former speaker was talking about, if you look at the conflict between the two royal families in Gabon, the Andanis and the Abudu royal families, he was able to resolve that conflict. And he did that first with his experience by setting up a committee of eminent chiefs, which have worked extensively with most of these factions to be able to come to a consensus and bring about peace. Besides, his leadership made them set up a roadmap for peace. And I'm talking on the experience side. And then, of course, once you secure the peace, it's also to maintain that peace. And he has been able to do that. So I am very confident that if the parties to the dispute are willing, for peace, if they are willing for peace, then I'm sure his role in helping to bring about that would be very important and would be successful.
Now, our correspondent on the ground, Williams Abansinkumi, mentions that there's a rep from the UN who will be involved in the proceedings. Some are of the view that we don't need any external support. What is your view on that?
Well, at this point, I don't think it is important to have external interference. My view is that they do not know the story on the ground. Now, if that external support is in the form of providing resources to support the process, I would support that. But just having people from external getting involved in local affairs, in my opinion, it's a non-starter. Yeah.
Now, after these mediation efforts are concluded, what institutional reforms would you recommend to prevent the recurrence of such conflicts and the devastation that comes with it?
I would speak from the fact that I went to school in Bawku and I know the environment. One of the things that is lacking is resources, and the government should make sure that they play a very important role in making sure that resources help most of the people to be able to sustain their lives. And that has to do with all the ethnic groups. That is the first thing. The second thing is, eminent people like Asantehene should continue with the diplomacy, especially, using the traditional aspects of our culture to make sure that the peace sustains. One thing is, once you have been able to attain the peace, if you do not sustain it, obviously one or two things could trigger, the return of that conflict. So I think that is the second thing that must be done. And then I think the whole notion of traditional chiefs, they play a very important role. If you look at the fact that apart from the mediation of disputes, they are able to adapt our traditional customs and cultural traditions that serves as more of a social cohesion for the people. So those should be worked on more. And then, of course, they also foster development. So I think the government should find a way to make sure that opportunities are available for the traditional leaders to be able to undertake local development, like building of schools and hospitals and agricultural projects. I think that would, in a way, continue, to sustain the people, and there will be peace. I think what is also important is that the government should undertake an educational effort for people to understand, or the traditional areas to understand, that without peace, there's no development. No matter how rich the area is, no matter how much natural resources they have in that area.
Prof, thank you so much for your perspectives on this matter. We wait to see what happens after these mediation efforts are concluded on May 1, and I'm sure we can have another conversation and also pick your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, that was Professor David Abdulai. He's a Senior Governance Advisor, African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. Time check, it is some 25 minutes to the top of the 10 a.m. And this is still 3FM Sunrise on